Do you love creepy stories that keep you up at night? Do you enjoy spine-chilling tales, both classic and original? Then you're in the right place. I read terrifying horror stories and write my own, bringing you nightmares in the best way possible. I'm on a mission to hit 50 subscribers, and every single one of you can help make that happen. So, if you love horror, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the scariest stories are yet to come, and you won't want to miss them. I still remember the gloom of that terrible house. It was a cold, gray autumn when I arrived at the Usher mansion, a dark and decaying castle that seemed to sink into the earth itself. The sky above was clouded and lifeless, and a deep black tarn lake lay still and silent in front of the house, reflecting its crumbling towers. I had been invited by my childhood friend, Roderick Usher. His letter had been desperate. He spoke of a terrible illness, of fear, of something unnatural lurking within his home. I could not ignore his plea, but the moment I saw that house, I felt it. A sickness, a curse, a deep, unshakable dread. Inside, the air was heavy, the walls lined with dusty books and strange paintings. The dim corridor seemed endless, as if the house itself was alive. Then I saw Roderick. He was a ghost of the man I once knew. His skin was pale, his hair thin and wild, his eyes wide with a nervous, haunted look. His hands trembled as he spoke. "I am glad you came, my friend," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He explained that he suffered from a strange disease. His senses were painfully sharp. Light and sound overwhelmed him, and a nameless terror filled his heart. But worse than his own sickness was that of his twin sister, Madeline. Madeline was dying. Her body was weak, her mind distant, and she often wandered the halls in silence, her face like that of a living corpse. That night, as I tried to sleep, I heard her footsteps outside my door, soft, slow, unnatural, and then silence. Days passed, and then Madeline died, or so we thought. Roderick, overcome with grief, refused to bury her outside. Instead, he insisted we place her in a tomb beneath the house, in a cold stone vault deep underground. "She must be safe," he whispered, "for a few days, just to be sure." I helped him carry her pale, lifeless body down into the crypt. As we placed her inside the tomb, I saw something that chilled my blood. Her cheeks still had color. Her lips were not quite cold. But I said nothing. We sealed the tomb, and the house grew even quieter. A week passed. Roderick did not sleep. His eyes grew darker, his whispers more frantic. "She is not dead," he muttered one night, his voice shaking. "She is still there. I hear her. She is trying to escape." I told him it was his nerves, his grief, his sickness. But then the sounds began. At first, faint scratching beneath the floors. Then, slow, muffled thuds from below. Then, a scream, a low, hollow cry, echoing through the mansion, shaking the very walls. I leapt from my chair. Roderick stood frozen, his face twisted with terror. "She is here," he whispered. "She has come for me." The doors burst open, and there stood Madeline Usher. Her white robes were stained with blood, her hands clawed and bruised from scratching at her coffin. Her eyes, wild, empty, dead. She let out a terrible shriek and threw herself at Roderick. He screamed once, a short, sharp cry, and then collapsed to the floor dead. I ran through the dark, endless halls, through the decaying rooms, through the cursed air of that horrible house. As I reached the front door, I heard a sound like thunder, a deep, cracking roar from within the walls. I turned just in time to see the house of Usher split in two. The great mansion crumbled, its stones falling into the black lake below. As the pieces sank, the water swallowed them whole. And then, as if it had never existed, the house of Usher was gone. As I looked back, the deep lake grew still once more, and the last trace of the house of Usher disappeared beneath the waters forever.